Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Okafor from John Samuel Estate. Today with me is the CEO for Premium Limited, Mr. Richard Abajo. I'll just let him tell you more about himself before we carry on.
Okay, thank you so much, Stephanie, for inviting me to this session. I think, to be honest with you, periods like this, one of the very crucial things that we have to do is to equip ourselves with information. And so well done for putting this together. So I run Purple Premium Group, Purple Premium Estates. We sort of cover quite a few things around the property industry. So first off, we are what you would call acquisition agents. So we help individuals who are based here in the UK who want to acquire properties, who feel that the property buying process is too inundated, it's too fragmented,
yes,
all over the place. So what they do is they engage us to help them to buy a property. So we offer that service as acquisition agents. We not only do that for people who are based here in the UK, but we also do that for people who are based abroad, in Africa, especially in Nigeria, who want to buy properties here in the UK. So acquisition agents, that's our core business. Then we're also property developers. So two phases: we buy rundown properties, refurbish it for ourselves, and we also do that for clients as well. Second phase of our property development is we buy land and we build from scratch. And we do that here in the UK, and we do that in Nigeria as well. Then we also run a property sales portal, similar to Rightmove, slightly more. There's a lot more to it than what you would have with Rightmove. Yeah, so that's we typically, for that service, we typically help developers who are in Africa who want to sell their properties here in the UK, in the diaspora altogether. So those are the sort of terms that we touch on. I've been doing that for the past, I think, a bit too long now. I think about 17 years altogether. That's what I've been doing that for. Yes, so that's what I do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. That's very impressive. And like you said, you've done that for so many years now. And I'm sure you've gone through all the recession,
yes,
now the lockdown, which is what we are going through at the moment. And for how I also like to ask you, when we were told lockdown that everyone had to stay at home and stay safe, what was it like for you as a businessman and for someone in the property industry? What was it like for you?
I'll be completely candid with you, Stephanie. And I was speaking to somebody about this the other day, and I was telling the person my response. I was in panic. I'll be completely honest with you. I spent the first week in bed because again, it was one of those ones where no one knew what this was. I was around in the last recession, and obviously I know it was quite abrupt then, but it was still, you could say it was gradual. So we heard about Northern Rock. Then after a while, the whole thing started to collapse. But this was quite different. This was pretty much in days. We just heard everything had shut, everything had shut down. So, and I'll be honest with you, I got a bit concerned because I would see people out there on social media when they're saying, this is a good time to do great stuff. This is a good time to put together all the projects that you've been having for this one. But I wasn't having that same feeling. I was in shock and I wasn't productive. I literally slept for a whole week. But after a while, I then started to get around it. I then started to understand, okay, people would normally respond to crisis this way. People don't tend to respond to crisis by being productive. That is not saying that is the best way to do it, or that is not the best thing to do, but don't put yourself under pressure. And as soon as I could understand that, look, take it easy, then get planning. I managed to move away from the anxiety to the stage where I now started to think, okay, what will be the best way to approach this. Now, this is where we are now. It's quite difficult because, again, you can plan at the end of the crisis because you have analyzed the full impact of the crisis on the industry. But this time around, nobody, as you rightly said, nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what was going to happen. So again, it was just a case of on a day-to-day response basis. And we had to shut down all our operations here in Nigeria. Literally everything we had to shut down. But after a while, it took us time to realize that, look, now is the time to reflect. Exactly. So then we now started to think, what are the opportunities? How do we adjust? How do we amend? How do we take advantage of what is happening?
That's it. Advantage of, because whatever problem is there, there's always an opportunity.
Of course.
And I think that's where most people kind of panic. They weren't looking at the positive side, which I panicked too in my own. Because when I was told that we needed to do this, do that, I just panicked. But I had to put it together because of my staffs, and I just wanted to reassure them. But for me, if you asked me on that day, that Tuesday morning, when I went to take all my computers and everything, I told the staffs to come in and take their laptops and what was happening. I wasn't even sure of what to tell them, but I knew something good. And that's the way I've always seen things, that there was something to come out of this. So that day, it took me a whole day to process. I was just like, you know what, next day I had to talk to the staffs. We had to have our own meeting. I just planned it. Then I think for me, I started looking at it more from, I'm a landlord myself. I've been a tenant. How would they be thinking at this time? So then I thought to myself, it's more of information, educating the tenants that this is what is happening. This is what they have to do, because there was a lot of panic from tenants and landlords as well. So for me, at first, the first day was the tough day for me. When I went to told my husband that what happens next. But the good thing about it was that I saw the positive part of it instead of educating my tenants, and that helped them. Okay. So that's why I wasn't panicking, because it's another thing for you, for there to be a problem in the country and the people surrounding you are all panicking as well.
Yeah.
So I think for me, how I was able to handle it was educate the staffs, the landlords and tenants, because a lot of landlords panicked. And you know the news when it was announced that landlords had to take 3-month break. Some tenants felt they had to take 3-month break as well.
I know, I can imagine that, yes.
So so we had to explain to them that, no, this is what it is, this is what you had to, and I think it helped. And also it just brought me back to the time that we've been through the recession, been through Brexit, and which is what I always tell everyone, the property industry is not for everyone.
It is.
You have to be tenacious to be in the property. You have to be able to hold yourself together when things happen. And that's how we've survived. But for me, another lesson is that something about me is I could be rigid sometimes. This is my way of doing things, and this is how I want to do it. Which is a lesson I've learned, that I had to be flexible in my approach. For instance, you know, we are property professionals. We have a way of conducting our business. It has to be face-to-face. You have to meet the clients. But we had to adjust to a flexible approach, in the sense that we had to do more of virtual viewings, virtual meetings with landlords. We had new properties come on, so we had virtual meetings. So those are things the staffs had to adjust to, and we had to be dealing with one another via Zoom most of the time, as opposed to being in the. But it's worked. I think we found out that this is how we had to work, and we had to. I think that was the.
And to be honest with you, technology has actually taken, just going by taking on from what you said, technology has taken the lead on this one. And again, it was one of those ones where we knew that, look, we have to rely on technology to pretty much help us progress in the industry. So it has been, I mean, we've had to do the same thing as well, had to hold Zoom meetings. I was even speaking to a solicitor, slightly digressing from what we're speaking in here. There was a transaction, one of our acquisition transactions that we were going through, and we got to the point where solicitor couldn't pretty much progress because they needed to verify the individuals. And because of the lockdown, nobody could move out. So again, we started to have conversations around, okay, why don't you look at doing video calls
Exactly.
where you can verify them, see them sign the documents in front of you, and it's allowable? Because I know people who have made applications where
Yeah.
they allowed for them to sort of slightly vary or adopt. Pretty much the process adapted to what was going on now. So yes, it has told us, it has compelled us, as you rightly say, it has compelled us to start to do things differently. Yes, you in normal circumstance probably would not have wanted to do your viewings virtually. You would
I would never have done that
face to face. So now it has, but crucially, it has also told us that things could be done effectively. So I'll give you a typical example.
Absolutely.
Yes, and cost effective as well.
Cost effective because
No, sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
Very cost effective because also there was something else in terms of signatory. I've always been old school when it comes to signing of documents. I prefer the original hard copy. Come to the office. That's what I've always done.
Always done. Yeah.
Years. But this has taught me that the ease, because e-signature has always been in place, but I've never really adopted it myself. I've always preferred the traditional way, but we've used that and it's been successful.
It has been
very effective.
Yeah.
You see, as opposed to waiting for the client to come in.
Yeah. You don't even have the time. You're doing it in half the time you would normally have done it before. So no, it has been, technology has been very, very helpful. I'll be completely
very helpful. And I think the lesson here is either you move with what is going on or you're left behind.
You're left behind, you're left behind.
See, knowledge is powerful, and it becomes powerful when it's acted upon. Is another thing for you to know something, and it's another thing for you to apply it, which for me, it's been a blessing because we've had to work on some other things that we wanted to do before the lockdown. And for me, I think it's brought myself and the team closer as well.
Okay.
I could see that happening as well. We even have an extra person joining us. So it's been, for me as a business person, I think the best way is work for me is to change my approach to things.
Okay.
That has helped. Either I move on to what is happening or I'm left behind.
You're left behind. And obviously, we don't want to be left behind, whichever way.
And even some other colleagues, what they've said was, because when it all happened, everybody was predicting a big loss. Everybody was saying they're going to close down. This is what is going to happen. I haven't said that there's some negatives to what is happening.
Of course,
we are all not doing as bad as we all thought we were going to. I don't know if it's the same with you.
It is. To be honest with you, I again, the first response, like I said to you, was for me was anxiety. But obviously we got past that stage. The core thing for us when we're looking at figures and we're looking at analyst reports and all of that, we couldn't see a clear end, a clear way out from this whole process. It was estimations, it was projections. It might happen in September, it might happen before the end of the year. So that for me was really worrying, and also for other parts of the industry, and they had to make adjustments.
Exactly.
Now, Arcadia Group, as you know, the guys that run Primark and the other Selfridge and a few other companies. I think it's run by Philip Green. They closed down they went back to they have about 560 commercial spaces right across the UK. They closed down around 60 of them. They went back to their landlords and said, listen, we need you to renegotiate our leases or we're walking away. Now that 60 commercial odd space is coming back straight into the market. And in any business environment, once our supply outstrips demand, it's the price that takes the hit.
Exactly.
So we looked at those figures, we were concerned, and again, these are the information that we work with. We did think that the impact this would have on the market would have been significant. But I mean, I'm looking at around, so far what I've heard, obviously from varying sources, but around the board, we're hearing around sort of 3% loss, which, as you know, is nothing. It's nothing compared to what we did think about before. So again, obviously, after the end of the process, we will hear. I mean, I was looking at the figures the other day. The amount of the viewings that had to stop, the exchanges that had
about according to Zoopla, it was about 373,000 properties
Yes,
were put on
yes.
hold.
On hold, yes, of
Yes,
course.
yes,
Yes.
I did.
And you did the research on that as well. And that was obviously in every market environment, when you see figures like that, you start to think we know certainly that most
Exactly.
of those ones that were deferred, that were put on hold, probably about 50% of those are not going to progress. That's a natural thing that will normally happen.
Exactly.
And the lenders doing their own thing, they're responding to that as well. So that got us concerned. But now seeing that, okay, last week, surveyors have been asked to go back. Last week, yourselves have been asked to go back as well and conduct your face-to-face viewings. So we're starting to think, that means, is that it? We have quite a number of buyers on our book, and everybody's gearing up to go
Exactly.
proceed with their sales. With their purchases as soon as
With the budget. And I think for now, there are a lot of people, confused buyers.
Yes.
They're not sure if to start looking again. I think the more they ask questions, I believe, which is one of the reasons why we're having this conversation today. I believe if there's a buyer there or a seller there that's thinking, is it good for me to sell my property now? Is it a good time to put back my property, or is it a good time to buy now? I think they've given us a green light, but haven't said that there's a safety guidelines that has been put in place, which everyone needs to follow. Like, you go in with your masks, with your gloves, whatever. If you're a seller, you need to vacate the whole place, stay in one room, or you go outside. But we can still get it done. But I think viewings are now restricted to serious ones. Before you could have anyone call you and say,
you can have anyone walking to your streets, of course.
So I think that's it. I think we are going back slowly, but I think just like someone said the other day, I'm not sure if you know, it's John Paul. He said something about, yes, we've been asked to go back. We just need a lot of planning, which is words plan in terms of the staff, and also one thing that happened that I noticed, even myself, was fear. When you go out, people had a lot of this. So those are things that even with staffs, one needs to kind of help them to win back themselves into the office environment. Because when you go out, it's like you're panic. I don't want this happening to me. I don't want that happening to me. So I think it's a whole lot of process, but I'm excited to go back. But I think we're just planning ourselves, taking it one step at a time. We're still working remotely. What about you? Are you back in the office, or you're still working remotely back?
So I'm still, and I think this is where it's one of those ones where you can't get away from. So that's also having to apply or consider family as well. So my kids, they haven't, as I'm sure the whole country is anyway, they haven't come back to school yet. And I still happen, apart from the older ones, I still happen to have a 6-year-old. So they've given us provided some information that they're going to go back to school at the end of the month, at the beginning of next month. So that means that I have 2 more weeks, as it were. About 10 days, as it were, to sit down with him. So I physically have to work from home. For now, what I'm managing to do is to conduct my meetings on Zoom. Last week I had a very, very productive meeting on Zoom.
Exactly.
With somebody in Nigeria. And when I finished that meeting, I said, "Listen, I'm going to do more of these meetings now."
Like, you know what's on my mind,
Exactly, and so these days I'm even saying to people, let's arrange for a Zoom, because it was very effective. I mean, I use Zoom to have my meetings here, but I never used it for Nigeria. This was a high executive
international,
and I would typically have jumped on the plane and gone out to Nigeria to have a sit down. But we had a fantastic 1 hour meeting.
Productive as well.
It was very productive. It was costly. It was cost effective as well, because it didn't cost us anything. The platform, our internet time. So I'm still having to do that for the next 2 weeks. But little by little, we're starting to go out. A lot of our stuff is site-based, so we're having to go out. We're starting to. I'm little by little, sort of gradually aging out. But crucially, which I think it's very important, as you did say earlier on, as you alluded to earlier on, we have come to realize that we could conduct business, albeit not in full capacity, but we could still conduct business and still survive as a business.
Absolutely, that's the lesson. I think it's
a big, big lesson. So now I'm starting to ask myself, how much of these things, what was really essential to us? I started to ask myself the question. I think I now have to revisit my book of essentials and strike off a few of that a few items from that list. Because one of the things that I thought was essential to us is really not essential. And I've had conversations with company executives who have said, listen, I don't think we would ever go back to the norm. I don't think we'll ever go back to that.
I've had a lot of that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, some companies are already at the verge of signing leases, and they've said, look, we'll put a hold on that.
Exactly.
Get half of our workforce to do work from home, as they've had to do in the last 2 months.
You can produce. Yeah, it's, as long as they have all the workstations, all
exactly.
the
So that is what I suspect. Well, not I suspect. People will start to think, you know what? How do we? No, sorry, they've been answered. That question has been answered in the last 2 months. The how do we? Because they have done it.
Exactly.
Organizations have run from home. I mean, I don't know if you get to watch.
And it's proved to be successful because even
it did.
Yeah.
No, sorry, go on.
Yes, I remember because I used to be on the high streets. I was there for so many years. It's before that was part of the decisions I made last year was to go in between hybrid and traditional. So sorry, online and traditional, making me hybrid. So I became corporate. And so looking back, which is one of the decisions I made. When I look back at the decision, because then I was thinking, because the normal thing you think of in property industry, you have to be on the high street.
Of course, yeah.
But for the past years, in honesty, this has been, a lot of things has been speaking to us as property professionals, but I think we've kind of not been looking at it until this happened.
Yes, when we were compelled to look at it.
Gradually going into the online, because if you look at the numbers of clients that call you, most of them are from your portals, from online. Yes. You barely have people walking in now, regardless of being on the high street. Yeah. They have appointments. And so that was one of the decisions I made last year. So for me, I'm coping well with it because I moved off high street and I became corporate. Okay. We do trade from a corporate environment. So for me, it hasn't been so much of a problem for me because I was already thinking in that direction before it happened. But obviously, when you're thinking of something and when it happens are two different things, isn't it?
I know. You could be thinking about it for a few years and not doing it, but now obviously we're all compelled to do it, and I think it's worked. I think it's worked well. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I was watching news the other day. It was I think it was Newsnight, or one of the interviews. The one, I think it's on Sky. It's a very, very heated interview. I think it was Newsnight actually. And it was what would normally happen is they would have the person that's been interviewed. He will come into the studio and he'll get interviewed there. And it's very heated, tensed, and loads of questions.
I do what that, yeah.
But they managed to do this, via, I don't know, whatever.
Even the
Zoom or whatever. And it was still the same experience. It was still heated, very intense, and it worked. Really? Pretty much half of the programs that I watch on television these days, they're mainly done from home, and you don't actually feel the difference. As a viewer, it's still.
I think it's a mind thing, really. I think because we all have our mind set on something that it has to work this way, and whatever you have in your mind is what you do outwardly. So we've always thought it has to be this way, and that's how we've all walked. But now that we've seen that we had no choice but to be flexible, I think that has helped in this conversation, because sometimes it could be lonely in this industry when you need to speak to people, because sometimes you feel better or things get better when this is what I have. And it's been very, I would say very more educating this morning, because I'm sure there are a lot of people watching and can benefit as business owners or property professionals. And I think the main thing is a new way of working. The world has adapted a new way of working, and whoever has adapted to that, I believe, is working for them. And it's been very interesting having this conversation with you, and I know you feel the same.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm sure you feel the same. So it's been really good and educative conversation, and we hope to see you again. And I just wish all of us best of luck now that we've been unlocked, and hopefully we all adopt to the new way. Either you, like I keep saying all the time, it's now become a mantra for me. Either you follow the crowd or
You get left behind.
you're left. Yeah, and I don't know if you have anything to say to our viewers, everyone that's listened.
So I mean, it's been very trying times. It's so unfortunate because people have lost loved ones. People have been affected, whether it's um, by losing a loved one, by losing the loss of income.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I say to people, things will get better and things would look up. Things happen to take shape at some point. I
Mm,
mean, even though at the time when I was saying this, I never saw any sort of ray of hope, but things are beginning to take shape now. I must,
absolutely.
and I think we're having the conversation earlier on. I must commend the government for their
That's
response.
fantastic.
They
Yes,
done extremely well to
extremely
help,
well.
and the markets as well, the property industry, the property markets. I think we've had this conversation before. It's cyclical. Whatever happens, yeah, we're lucky that the heat we're seeing now is not as bad as we thought it would
As a
be.
whole, so yeah.
However, even though there's been any sort of a glitch, I wouldn't say a dip, it would always level out at some point because
Absolutely,
things always
absolutely,
require movement. So at some
absolutely.
point, things will balance back up. So I think it was the Ghanaian president I read somewhere. He said, "We know how to repair economies, but we don't know how to make lives." So, and
Mm,
that sort of went well with me. Sorry, sort of it was because he said what he meant was, listen, let's try and come out of this in one
exactly.
piece. We will sort out
Exactly.
the economy afterwards at some point. So that will be my response. Just take it easy, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Last thing we want to do is lose our mental
Yes.
well-being out of this process. So let's just be positive about it, and we'll be fine. And hopefully, we're seeing the end of it. Yes, I know that we are edging back, um, but it will take a gradual process, to get back
Absolutely.
to normalcy.
Yeah.
So be patient.
Yeah.
Things things will come back. Things will fall back into place. But just be patient and let it just sort of progressively edge towards normalcy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a good way to end the conversation. And like we rightly said, there's help for everyone, regardless of what capacity. If you don't know something, it's better for you to ask questions. I'm sure, like I said earlier, I'm Stephanie Okafor. This is Mr. Richard About. If you have any questions whatsoever in relation to what we've discussed today or anything at all, and if we cannot help you, I'm sure we can always point you in the right direction. But seek knowledge, seek information, don't be left behind. And thank you. And have a good day. Thank you.